Celaena Sardothien has survived deadly contests and shattering heartbreak, but now she must travel to a new land to confront her darkest truth. That truth could change her life and her future forever. Meanwhile, monstrous forces are gathering on the horizon, intent on enslaving her world. To defeat them, Celaena will need the strength not only to fight the evil that is about to be unleashed, but also to harness her inner demons. If she is to win this battle, she must find the courage to face her destiny and burn brighter than ever before. The third book in the #1 New York Times bestselling Throne of Glass series continues Celaena's epic journey from woman to warrior. Hi, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Jacqueline.
And I'm your host, Nicole, and you're listening to the first season of Perfictionist.
So today we're talking about Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas, which is a given the title of this episode. But this is our heavy spoilers episode. Mm-hmm. So this is an exciting one. And it takes place after the events of Crown of Midnight, where it is actually extremely sad because Princess Nehemia was murdered by
she was
horrible grave.
Heartbreaking.
It really was. So Celaena took that very hard.
I mean, makes sense.
They were like,
she
BFFs.
Finally found her friend again.
I know. She does not have good luck with friends,
right? The worst luck with friends.
Seriously. Oh my gosh.
So Celaena has been sent to Wendlyn by Chaol. So Chaol has, in the previous book, Crown of Midnight, Chaol devised this plan to send Celaena to Wendlyn. He's thinking he's getting her out of kind of the harm of the king, get her out of the way. She'll be safe over in Wendlyn. And the king agrees to this because two reasons. Chaol convinced his dad to support this plan by saying he would return to his hometown and take over as lord, which his dad has been wanting him to do since he left.
He's been bugging him about it.
The king agrees to send Celaena to Wendlyn so that she can kill the royal family and as part of her job as the king's champion.
Right.
And she goes over there, and the very, very end of Crown of Midnight, we find out her massive big secret. And this whole time, she has been this, mystery, thought to be dead princess, Aelin Galathynius. It was like... And then Chaol's like, what have I done? Sending her there. And she goes there. And we begin the story with her there, absolutely drunk as a skunk, completely out of it. She's given up on even trying to kill the royal family. She's given up on everything.
She's shattered. She's just totally shattered and just not caring at all about anything. She's literally lounging around on rooftops, baking in the sun, drinking herself silly in her grief. It's sad.
It's very sad to see because you see her as this powerful person in both Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, and Crown of Midnight. And it's this is such a complete and drastic change from the person we've seen.
The fire seems to be gone from her. And she's her swagger is nowhere to be found. She is just extinguished.
Those are excellent ways to describe how she's being portrayed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so she's got her depression. We assume she's got PTSD. I think that's a fair assumption. She's trying to cope with it with the drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it makes sense the way that she's acting. I think it was I like that Sarah put this into the story because in real life, if someone were to go through the traumas that Celaena has gone through, in
Mhm.
such a short period of time, being in prison for a year, then being forced to fight in like this battle to the death, having your best friend brutally murdered in a
Mhm.
way that reminds you of your first boyfriend and how they were brutally murdered before you went away. Like, too many things has gone on in her short
Mm.
life. And remembering she's only like 18, maybe 19 at this point.
Yeah, she's
Such a
super
short
young.
life. And
Yeah,
anyone who's gone through that is going to have to work through it in some way. And this is a very realistic way that someone would work through these traumatic events.
definitely. And she's also alone. Like she's totally alone over there. So she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't even have, Kale or Dorian or anyone that she may know and around her. So I mean, she was struggling really heavily in Rifthold too. Obviously because she blamed Kale for
Mm-hmm.
everything. So there was, yeah. So she's also dealing with the breakup of somebody who she loved
Yeah, on top of everything
on
else.
top of everything else. So,
Yeah, not just
yeah.
like a breakup, but like she feels deeply betrayed by what he did as
Hmm.
well, which kind of another layer to just everything that's going on for her. So I respect the fact that Sarah
Everything
put
is
this in.
bad. Everything is bad for her right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah, she's in a very bad place. And so many books and movies and TV shows, like something so traumatic will happen and then they just kind of brush over it. And I'm like, wait, what? Sorry, huh? And like she stopped
Exactly.
and like let us sit in this moment with
Hmm.
Celaena. And I'm like,
Yeah,
thank you.
totally. Too often that happens, less now than in the past, but too often that happens where and in fact, I can't even enjoy movies or shows that do that now, where something just crazy happens, people die, and then the gang just keeps going and they're joking around,
Hmm.
and I'm like, okay, I could see in some circumstances if you're in that situation and maybe you have like a mission or something, and you're joking around as like a way to cope so that you can get through that. But
Hmm.
that's not what they're doing on these movies. They're just like, that happened, that was crazy. Let's just keep moving the plot forward. And we're not going to be dragged down by this over here.
Hmm.
And I find that so unrealistic that it actually like inspires some disgust in me, and I almost
Hmm.
can't continue watching if that happens. And
Yeah.
it feels like a huge plot hole to me. So, yeah.
Yeah. I get very bothered when characters act out of character for like the established kind of character that has been created. And then when they just act out of a normal person, how
Yeah.
they would act.
Yeah.
Those two things
Yeah.
really upset me. So, as Celaena is drunkenly stumbling around, something unexpected. Well, actually, I think she does expect this to happen. I think she has been waiting for this moment to happen. And we see this figure appear, and it's a very imposing figure. And in this moment is our very first look at a Fade male. And his
Yes.
description is just very like, here I am.
Here I am,
And it like
sort of
really sets you up.
scary,
Hmm.
intimidating, sort of feral and animalistic. And
Yeah.
I just love that because it just adds so much, like there's an edge to every time you see a fae. There's always like this danger edge to it.
Hmm.
Love that.
And I think it like described like all like the shutters like closing up. And like there was like a vagrant fighting with, not fighting with her, but like verbally accusing her of like stealing her corner. And Selena's like, wow, I must be really looking not so great if somebody thinks I'm trying to steal their like homeless area.
Yeah.
And so this lady who was, it describes her as this mad woman who was kind of coming at Celaena, all of a sudden is like backing away, like, never mind, I'm gonna just get out of here.
Yeah.
And Celena's like, yep, here we go.
Here we go. Yeah. So, like, obviously, our first impression is like, whoa. And I think it's meant to be kind of a whoa moment.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. This is what, the third official book, but fourth if you include the prequel.
Mhm.
I have been waiting for this moment. I have been waiting for this moment.
Yes.
And I was not disappointed. It was like,
Mhm.
yeah, got the adrenaline going a little bit while I was reading this moment. But then
Yeah, I would.
he's like, so he sees her, and everyone else thinks she's like a homeless figure laying there,
Yeah,
like maybe.
individual. Yeah.
So he's obviously, he like comes upon her and he's disgusted. Like,
This is the person I've been sent to get.
It's like pathetic. Like he's just like so disgusted by her.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think he's like so nasty?
I have absolutely no idea why he's so nasty. Like, I guess later on we kind of learned some things, but I don't like. I wasn't disappointed in his introduction. The way he was introduced to the story, I thought was really well done. But I was very disappointed in him as a person. I guess he's not a person. I was very disappointed in him as a character. And I was like, dude, what's your problem? Like, just why? Why are you being so incredibly rude? Why are you so nasty? And I guess it's like has to do with his connection to Maeve and everything he's had going on in his past. He's got a lot of trauma in his past as well. He's very loyal. He's a soldier.
Yes.
He's a soldier acting like a soldier. And I'm just like, dude.
Well, from his perspective, because at first I was like thinking, man, he's so mean. Because we know what Celaena's been through. We've been there with her, in the highs and the lows. And so when he's mean to her, I feel almost protective of her. Like, I'm like, how dare you? You don't know what she's been through. Like, but he actually doesn't know what she's been through. So from his perspective, he's been sent to fetch Aelin Galathynius, the lost princess of Terrasen. And all he finds is this drunken mess in an alleyway. His first impression of her, I think, I can understand. But, and he is very kind of unyielding in his judgment with her. And he's not afraid to let her know it. Rowan then takes Celaena to Mistward, which is a fortress on the border of Wendlyn and Doranel. And so Wendlyn, as we have previously explained, is the human area, and Doranel is the Fae territory, or I don't know if it's considered a kingdom. I
think they call it the Immortal Lands.
So the Immortal Lands of Doranel, right? Yes. So in my head I had it was like a kingdom because Queen Maeve and stuff, but so Maeve is actually her aunt. She's related to this queen, and Celaena has gone there because she wants to ask Maeve about the word keys and all that stuff. But Maeve is like, no, you need to prove yourself worthy. And
I know the answers.
I know the answers, but I'm not giving them to you. Shoo, prove yourself worthy, and then we will talk.
And she has to like prove herself worthy to Rowan so that Rowan can pass on to Maeve, like she is worthy.
Yeah.
So now she's stuck with this guy.
Stuck with him. I like that she's stuck with him. I was like, yes.
I know that a distinction was made. For the Fae, they're not called men, they're called males. Yeah. Is that what the distinction was?
Yes, because humans are men.
Yeah.
And women. And Fae are males and females.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Maeve has some pretty strict rules about who gets to enter the immortal realm. So basically, not only does Celaena have to prove herself to get the answers, but she needs to prove herself so that she can go into the immortal lands so that she can get the answers. So she can only get them if she goes to Doranel, and she can only get into Doranel if she proves herself. And essentially, if you are a full-bred Fae, then you are welcome into Doranel and all that land. However, if you are do they call it half-breed in this?
Yeah. Yep.
Half-breed, so insulting, then you need to prove yourself, and only like the gifted of the half-breeds get to enter into Doranel. So that's what Mistward,
yeah.
And Mistward.
Yeah.
Okay.
She says it's one of the several proving grounds they have for the half-breeds to go ahead and try and do that. Meet the qualifications.
Yeah, and if you don't meet the qualifications, then you are allowed to stay in that area, like in one of the fortresses along
Yeah.
the border.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can like go and live with the humans, I guess, if you want to.
Sort of sad because it's like, where do
Yeah.
you belong?
Yeah. And it's like quite literally gatekeeping.
Yeah,
There
literally.
are gates keeping
My gates are
the
shut to you
demi-fae out or half-breeds out.
physically. Yeah,
Physical
seriously.
gates keeping them out. So I
Yeah.
personally think that that's like really harsh.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, how do you tell people like you don't belong more than
Yeah.
literally you cannot step past here unless you prove yourself?
I mean, I
And
guess
we
you
meet
just say
some,
it and you
yeah.
have the power to back it up if anybody resists.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess when you've lived as long as she has, because like, I don't know if we find it out in this book, and I don't think it's like that big of a deal if we don't, but she's like one of the oldest, or if not the oldest fae. To prove herself, Celaena has to show off her gifts, or I guess master her gifts. And the first of that being she needs to shift. Because since we know that she can shift, because she did it in the portal in order to save Kale and Fleetfoot.
oh,
And
yes.
but she doesn't like it. The way that it was presented, it was like she was releasing the beast, or, you know, something like that, where it's like clearly she is not a fan of going into this fae form. There's got to be, you know, a lot to uncover with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rowan is trying to get her to shift into her fae form. And that's kind of like the first part of their training. The first, like, quite a bit of their training is just him convincing her, like trying to push her into shifting.
Yeah. And pusher he does. Obviously, as you mentioned, like she's got some seriously bad association with her fae form. We don't exactly know why at this stage in the book,
Mm-hmm.
but she is seriously repulsed by it. I think she says it's like the monster within. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's not approving of her fae form. Whenever I think, a side note, whenever I think of her fae form in the portal,
Mm-hmm.
the image I have in my mind is so sleek and powerful. It's like, yeah, anyway, just,
Whenever I think of it, I always think of that she's blue, like in that movie.
blue?
Yeah.
Like her skin?
Yeah. I know it's
Oh,
not. I 100% know she just is like herself, but with like canines and pointy ears.
and
But,
like longer limbs. She's
mhm.
taller and she's just her body is more fey.
Yeah.
So physically she is transformed.
But I always picture her as the people from, oh my, the very popular movie it just came out, like last
Avatar?
Avatar. I 100%
The
always picture an
Na'vi?
avatar, a
Mm,
Na'vi.
fair enough.
And it took like, I think I've kind of gotten past that at this point, but probably for the entirety of this book, I always just pictured them that way. And I'm like, this isn't
Interesting.
real. This isn't how it's written. You're making things up. In Wendlyn, Celaena is training with Rowan. And we've already discussed that he's quite nasty towards her. But he is calling her some things that are just downright. I was so frustrated. I was so mad at him at this point in the story when he's like trying to train her and trying to get her to shift. And the things he says to her, I was fuming. Like, I was ready to like crucify this guy. Like, he's not a guy, male. I was just so incredibly upset. And I know so many people online love Rowan, and it's like that's their favorite character. And I'm just like, how? How can you like this person? This Fae? How? I was just so frustrated with his behavior.
Yeah, he was nasty. I was surprised actually. I don't know. So there's like an enemies to lovers trope, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of somewhat like we know he's not like an enemy,
Yeah.
but he's definitely not like a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he's so mean to her. Like and he says things to her that are pretty triggering for her too. Like he calls her a coward, and that's the
Yeah.
last thing Nehemia said to her that's triggering. So Rowan takes her to the Barrow Whites and tells her if she can cross the mounds, he will take her to Doranel. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously it's like, to me, it was like he's just throwing her to the wolves, essentially.
Yeah.
But so while she's crossing this weird field thing or whatever is what I was mentioning in my mind, there's all these like mounds, I think, right?
Yeah, I was picturing a field like with like humps of dirt.
Yeah, me too. Okay, cool. She's attacked by some unknown creature. And while she's being attacked, she ends up seeing like these flashbacks of really horrific stuff. Like probably the most traumatizing things she's experienced in her life, like her parents' death, Nehemiah's death. So her parents' death, I don't think we've been treated to sort of learning about too many details. Like Sarah's been feeding us little bits and pieces about her childhood. And while this is happening, she's is it while this is happening? She's shifting back and forth uncontrollably. Yeah.
Yes.
And so it seems like when she's got some serious terror going on or whatever, she loses control over her shifting. So it's interesting because obviously we haven't really discussed this, but so Celaena, or Aelin, as Rowan calls her, it seems that in this world there are fae who can shift into different forms. So Celaena's form is a human, but her actual, like, so when she's human, she is shifted. Like that is her animal, so to speak, form. And her normal form that she was born as is fae.
I'm curious if Celaena presented as fae when she was a child, because that was her true form, and human is her shifted form, and sort of what that looked like as her childhood, like for that experience.
Right.
Did her parents hide that part of her? Did they have her shift into her human form when, like, if they had people come over, or was it just like everyone knew she was part fae, or like was fae bodied?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I am enjoying how we get like small snippets of her childhood, like very small snippets, because it keeps you being like, well, I have to keep reading this because I want to find out.
Keeps you interested.
So Celaena's training with Rowan, it continues, but she doesn't seem any closer into shifting and like being in control of shifting into her fae form. It does seem like it's because she doesn't want to, though. When she's trying, like, it doesn't. Her heart's not in it.
Yeah, there's some sort of a mental block.
Rowan bites her, which I knew I had been spoiled that via fan art. But when it happened, I was like, not the way it happened was not what I expected. I was expecting them to be like, okay. I'm going to just say what I expected. And I am not caught up with the books yet. I'm reading Empire of Storms right now. So what I could say could be wrong, although I'm pretty sure it's not. When he bit her, I thought he was like, in the fan art, I was like, oh my gosh, he's putting a claiming mark on her. I thought like he was like, you're my mate.
Which makes no sense in the context of where their relationship is at. That you just automatically be like, we fight all the time and I insult you and call you horrible things. Now I shall mate you.
So that is why I was shocked where it happened in the book, because they don't even like each other. And then when he bit her, it was more of a violent thing. It wasn't like a passionate thing. So that surprised me. Just saying, because when I saw that fan art and then reading about it, it was two very different scenarios.
No, I think I saw the same one as you, because like, did the one you saw have the quote as well?
No, it did not.
Oh, okay. I saw a different one then, because
it might be the same like, art.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, yeah, that even gives more. But no, he said, "Oh, there you are," didn't he? When she shifted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he bit her to force her into a shift.
Yeah, I think he noticed that she was shifting uncontrollably in the situation with that creature. That I think it turned out to be a skinwalker, that creature.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, oh, maybe pain can get her to shift. So I think he was kind of putting the pieces together and then like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, let's try this. And
Yeah.
it worked, I guess. I mean, he got
I
what
mean,
he was wanting.
he got what he wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, Celaena's like, I'm done. I'm not putting up with this. I'm out of here. I don't need these answers that bad. I will find them elsewhere. And she
Yeah.
actually leaves. And one of the things that we didn't mention is that when they were on their way to Mistward, they didn't do any fires. Rowan would not make a fire. And she was like, oh, come on. Like, can we not just have a fire? Like, creature comforts, like the tiniest little thing I'm asking for here. And he's like, no, we can't do a fire. And when she was on her way back through the forest, because they have to cross this like massive forest, she was like, I'm out of here. It goes back through the forest, but she makes the unfortunate decision to light a fire, not thinking about, oh, maybe there was a reason he didn't light the fire other than the fact that he was just being a jerk.
Yeah.
The reason being that there are creatures out there like the skinwalkers that had just attacked her not that long before.
Mm-hmm. So she ends up shifting. She's like, I need to be in my Fae form to fight these crazy jerks, these crazy creatures. So she shifts, and then she even uses some magic to fight
Yeah.
them.
Well, luckily Rowan was kind of following her. And so he, like the skinwalkers attack her in this forest on her way back to the human area. And Rowan kind of shows up out of the blue and is like, you need to shift or you will not survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so they shift together. Well, he's already shifted, obviously. He's just Fae. He's in his Fae form.
Yeah.
And she shifts back into her Fae form and they book it and run. And she has almost like a vision where she sees like their plan of just running is not going to work.
Yeah.
And they're like going to jump off a cliff or something. And she's like, this isn't like, she has like some sort of vision or something. And she's like, this isn't going to work. And then she comes up with this idea to use her magic to blast the skinwalkers. Mm-hmm. So you're like, I don't know if I just pictured it this way or if this is how it's truly described. But what I pictured as I was reading it was like Rowan leapt off the cliff. She leapt off and kind of turned and like
yeah,
blast them with fire.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had pictured too. So yeah. But like, that's huge. That's a massive breakthrough because that's what he's been trying to kind of get her to do. So she ends up changing her mind and heading back to Mistward with Rowan. Like, okay, I'll come back with you. Fine.
That was kind of like the first turning point in their relationship where I think they sort of respected what each other were doing in that moment.
Yeah. Meanwhile, back in Wendlyn, so there's like news kind of traveling up and stuff. There's these demi-fae are being killed, but it's not just like killed. It's really weird because their bodies are being totally drained of blood and then just like left as these husks. And that's really creepy, obviously. So Rowan wants to find out like what's killing these demi-fae and like how. And so he and Celaena decide to work together to kind of investigate, I guess. So there's a little bit of a mystery factor added back in here. It's not like the main plot. It's a little side plot.
It's a little something.
Yeah. And we also get a really important flashback from Celaena's childhood. And during this flashback, we learn that Aelin's gift is very special.
Yes.
And Maeve will hunt her for it.
Yeah. So
dun, dun, dun.
So one thing that we learn is that Celaena or Aelin, I guess she's Aelin to her parents do not want her to see Maeve. Like Maeve has like asked about her and like wants them to bring Aelin to see her and meet her. And they are like, no way, no go. They cannot meet our child. And I don't think we know exactly why, other than there's something special about Aelin and they don't want Maeve to know about her, or like know the extent of what she is able to do. And so it's a little bit of information, but like mostly just like a nugget. Like you just get the tiniest bit because you don't really understand why they are so adamant that they cannot meet.
Yeah.
But it's definitely important to know that her parents want her never to see Maeve. And now she's like in her clutches. Not quite, but like.
Practically. Almost. She's under her sort of control in a way.
Well, I mean, like, Rowan's right there. So I guess she is in her clutches, because if she tells Rowan to end her, he will.
He will.
At this point in time, I think he would. Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of just Maeve's sword. Yeah.
So Rowan, being the brilliant person that he is, the brilliant fae that he is, I'll get this right eventually, he comes up with another plan. So his first absolutely fantastic plan was the whole walking through the mounds, and then she ends up getting attacked by this creature. So that went wonderfully. So he's like, I'll try again. Let me do another great sort of plot to bring out her magic. So this time he takes one of her little friends she's made. So part of her training is she works in the kitchen. So every morning she works in the kitchens, and then every afternoon she's training with Rowan. And she's made a friend in the kitchens. His name's Luca. He's just like the cutest. And Rowan takes Luca, chains him to this like pole or something in the middle of a lake. And then he freezes the lake because Rowan's powers ice or like wind. So he can freeze things. So he freezes this lake and somehow he just chains Luca to the center of this pond. I don't know, lake.
Yeah,
inside
lake.
A cave.
Yeah.
So they're in a cave. There's a lake. Luca is stuck, chained. And Celaena has to go and set him free. Oh, I think it is frozen because she has to use her power to freeze through the ice to pull up the chain, because the chain is like frozen into the ice.
You mean like
to
melt
free
through?
Him. Yeah, melt through. Sorry.
It's okay. All good.
Freeze through it. Melt the ice to free the chain. And so she's going about doing this, like, oh, poor Luca. And lo and behold, there is a creature in this lake.
Yeah,
so
like a big
one. Like a massive, very, very dangerous creature.
Yeah.
So she is freeing Luca. All of a sudden, this creature is like attacking them. Thankfully, she's able to get Luca to safety. They're able to, I don't think they defeat the beast, but everyone ends up being
escape.
Safe.
Yeah.
But it's like, come on, Rowan, think through your plans a little more. I mean, I guess how would he know? How would he possibly know?
I guess he just didn't know. He's like, this looks good. This is a good spot.
This is perfect. Well, and I mean, in some ways it is. It's like in a cave, so it's contained and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But he discovered that she's willing to do anything for the people she cares for. So that's why he's like putting Luca in this situation, because he's like, if it has to do with someone else, she will do what it takes to save them, regardless of how uncomfortable it makes her feel. So he's like abusing her loyalty to people in order to get her to use her magic, which is really, really sneaky. And
it's strategic.
Cool. It's strategic, but
when it comes to like, I guess like, no, I'm not in love with it either, but when it comes to like, he's got a goal and he's under Queen Maeve's command. So he's set forth on this mission and he's going to accomplish it in whatever way he needs to. Is the impression I'm given.
Yeah.
There's this crazy scene where she's trying to get away and save Luca and get to Rowan, and Rowan's alarmed because he's like, where'd this monster come from?
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so it's an awesome scene and you got to read it in order to understand its epicness. But during this craziness, she ends up acquiring a new sword and a ring from inside this cavern. And that is important. So remember that.
Yeah. It's very important. It seems insignificant in that moment, but it definitely is something to know. It's one of the things that we say Sarah does so well is you have these tiny moments and you're like, okay, cool. She finds a sword. Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah.
But then it's like, actually,
this
keep an eye on that
super
sword.
Important. So
yeah.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch perspectives. So that was kind of Celaena's, for part 1 of the book, that was Celaena and Rowan's story in Heir of Fire part 1. Okay. So now we're going to sort of jump to Dorian and Chaol's perspective. We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to go to Menon's perspective. But for now, we're going to talk about Dorian and Chaol. So now we're jumping back to Rifthold. And they are in the Great Hall when Aedion Ash River walks in. He's Aelin's cousin.
Yes.
So Aedion gives kind of a bad boy vibe, I guess. Like he's Dorian and Chaol obviously don't trust him. I think they feel like he's almost like a loose cannon in some ways.
Yeah.
And alarmingly, he's wearing one of those black rings.
Yes. So he walks in. He seems very confident. He seems very, like, he almost comes across as like the playboy type.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of a player. And I think he has this reputation.
He
of
does.
being a bit of a player, playboy kind of. And yeah, you can instantly see or like instantly tell that there's no love lost between Dorian, Chaol, and Aedion.
No.
It's like they're not friends. It's not like, oh, our buddy's back. It's like,
yeah,
here he is again.
Here he is again. And the impression I was getting was like this guy is dangerous and powerful too.
Yeah. And I think there's like also this layer of the fact that he is from Terrasen, but he like happily works for the king.
Yeah. So it's like he is such a snake. That's the
like
impression
fully
we're
embrace,
getting.
just like completely switching sides.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it gives villain vibes, but
yeah. And in one part, Dorian's like asked to like take him around, do something with him. It's like, take him out, entertain him. So they go for a walk through the gardens, and he just like pushes Dorian into a rose bush or something.
Yeah.
He just like pushes him over. And it's like, okay, that was unnecessary.
Real mature.
I mean, it turned out to be, I guess, kind of a good thing for Dorian because he had to go get fixed up. And so he had to go see a healer. And he meets a little somebody named Sorsha. Yeah. Which is lovely. But yeah, it was kind of just a jerk move.
It seemed like a jerk move, yeah. Aedion comes across as a jerk.
Significantly.
Yeah.
So Chaol suspects that Aedion is up to something. So he decides he's going to start following him. So Aedion always throws these like extravagant parties in Rifthold. As we said, he's kind of like the playboy type. So he's going out and throwing these parties. And Chaol's like, I'm going to go follow him. And he starts following him. And he starts to discover that although Aedion throws all these parties, he never seems to be there.
Yeah.
He'll like go to one person and be like, hey, have you seen Aedion? And they're like, oh, he's with so-and-so. And then he goes to that person. Have you seen him? No, he's with so-and-so. Oh, he just left. Like he's never there. But everyone seems to always have just seen him or something.
It's like he gives the impression that he is there and he's this big partying playboy and he's always somewhere doing something with someone.
Yeah.
But then when you actually look for him, it's like, where is he?
Yeah. He's never actually with the people everyone thinks he's with. And so Chaol's following him and he ends up following him down this like alleyway or something. And he sees Aedion with the rebel group. Like the group that kidnapped Chaol in the previous novel. Aedion's hanging out with them. He's chilling with them. And Chaol's like, excuse me, what?
I mean, clearly at this point, at least it was, I mean, I think it's clear to everybody. Obviously, Aedion is putting on this huge front to cover up what he's actually doing, which is still being loyal to Terrasen.
Yeah. So he's been a rebel spy, I guess, in a way. And Chaol discovers this, and now Aedion's like, well, I have to kill you, dude. Kind of blowing my cover, and it's like pretty big cover.
Well, and imagine though, Chaol, he's like the head of the king's guard, kind of. So being discovered by Chaol would be disastrous, catastrophic in Aedion's mind.
Yeah, so like, because Kale thinks that Adian is on the king's side. Adian thinks Kale is on the king's side, and in some ways, Kale still is.
Mm-hmm.
So Kale does the one thing he can think of to get him out of this situation alive, and he goes, Aelin is alive.
Yeah.
And which, like, Adian, like, they were best buds.
Yeah.
And
they
so
loved each other
was, like,
in a like a
shocking.
platonic brother sister way.
Yeah.
And so that's massively shocking for him.
Mm-hmm. So they all decide to start working together.
Yeah.
So Kale kind of joins forces, and they have their little rebel alliance that they're working on secretly.
Yeah.
In the background.
And they're not loving each other, but they're on the same side.
Yeah. They are begrudgingly working together because they have the same goal.
Yeah.
And I think this is a real turning point where Kale's like, I think at this point, it's like he's not really working for the king anymore. Yeah. I think he's fully kind of gone over
to the rebels, kind of.
To the rebel side.
Yeah. Dorian, he is really struggling because he's got this magic that's been emerging, and obviously still trying to hide it. And so, poor Dorian. I actually feel so sorry for him throughout the story, because he's such a, like, I don't know, he's just a likable character, and he's and it's just really stressful. And when he was pushed into the rose bush, he went to go like find the healer. Her name is Sorsha, as Nikki mentioned, and he ends up falling in love with her, and they end up having this whole relationship. So what did you think of their budding relationship?
I thought it was kind of sweet. I was kind of like, Dorian always seems to fall for the person he cannot have. Like, there was absolutely no way that he, as a soon-to-be king or future king, can marry a healer. Like, that's just... So I feel so bad that he always falls in love with the wrong person. And, like, not that they're the wrong person, just, like, an unrealistic person for the life trajectory that he has to take for who he is. So it's like, oh, he just sets himself up for heartbreak every single time.
Regarding Dorian, whenever I read about him, I always feel so sorry for him, because his father's just this hateful bastard.
Yeah. And he's so different.
Yeah. He's so different from his father that it's like, how are they related? Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I like the relationship, but I feel sad knowing that it can't last forever.
No.
Because he is a prince and she is a healer, and that sounds
and they have to keep
lovely.
It quite secret.
Like, from everyone. I think they even keep it secret from, like, the other healers. And
it's just complete secret.
And I think they both tried to fight it at first. Like, I do think that they were kind of like, this doesn't make any sense, but I mean, you can't. The heart wants what it wants.
The heart wants what it wants, and they legit fell in love too. It wasn't just a lust thing. So
no, it was like absolutely beautiful.
It was, yeah. So now we're going to talk about the newest point of view that has been added to the story, one that we haven't seen before, and it is of Manon Blackbeak, which is the heir to the Blackbeak witch clan.
Yes. Yeah, so Manon is a witch, and we were briefly introduced to witches in previous novels, but this is the first time we actually get the perspective of a witch.
Yes.
So this is the first main character witch that we see. And we kind of are introduced to her in a pretty epic way. She is living in this cabin-esque thing, and these men come. And she's used to it. She's like, oh, here we go again. This seems to be something that she goes through quite often. So these men come up, and they start, like, raiding her cabin, probably looking to do something nefarious with her. And she completely turns on them, kills them, and I think she might eat them.
She seems to like the taste of human flesh.
Yeah, I don't know if she like
the witches. The witches seem to eat people.
They seem to. So they like, she definitely enjoyed a nibble or a drink.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, she just completely destroyed them. And so that's her introduction to witches, is this kind of brutality. She, like, acts all innocent and stuff, and then, like, out come the literal iron nails. And I think her teeth also have iron on them. She can, like, they like retract them.
They can
and then,
snick
like,
down and snick up. Yeah. Pretty
So
cool.
yeah, she just deals with them. I mean, they were horrible men. You can't feel bad. They were going there to do terrible things to
Terrible
her.
things. Yeah.
So they deserve what was coming to them. But it was quite a first impression, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. She's obviously very powerful.
Hmm.
Um, so we learn the witches have teamed up with Duke Parrington of all people. They're kind of on the wrong side of things here. But it's
Hmm.
interesting. So they've teamed up with Duke Parrington and the King.
Hmm.
And do you remember in the previous episodes we've mentioned this? Caltaine Rompier was mentioning she kept hearing the flapping wings, the
Yeah.
flapping wings. And so as it turns out, those are the wyverns that the king has
Hmm.
been breeding in the Farian Gap. And the plan is that the witches are gonna ride these wyverns.
Hmm. Which
So
are like dragons, but don't have
don't
front
have the
legs.
yeah, so they're just
They just have
like
like
just the
wings in the
back
front
legs and
and
the
then back
wings.
legs.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the difference. I had to actually look
Just
it
in
up because
case
it's like,
anyone didn't know.
is it just yeah? Is it I did look it up because I was like, what is this just another
Yeah, me
word
too.
for dragon? And but
Hmm.
no, it's an actual difference. So
Hmm.
yeah, so the three clans of the Iron Teeth witches have made their way to the Farian Gap to do
Hmm.
training with the wyverns. And I
Yeah,
guess
which is
I
so
guess even
exciting.
just like choose or whatever their
Yeah.
wyverns to ride because
Yeah, they need to
they're
like
not
form
like
a bond.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think like it's sad because I like the witches, but it's sad they're on the wrong team. But at the same time, it makes complete sense because every time we've heard about them in previous books, they're evil. They're straight up evil.
They're straight up
So it
evil,
makes sense.
vicious, like they're on the
Hmm.
wrong side of things and that's kind of where they belong, it seems.
Yeah. And we are introduced to the fact that there's actually three clans. So there's kind of two types of witches. There are the Iron Teeth witches, which are these more vicious, ferocious witches. And there are three clans within the Iron Teeth, which are the Black Beaks, which Manon is the heir to, the Yellow Legs, and the Blue Bloods.
Hmm.
So three different clans, but all under the heading of Iron Teeth witches.
Hmm.
And each clan has like a matron, like a head witch, I guess, and then
Yep.
their heir. So
Yeah. The
that's sort
matron
of
is
the
kind of
structure.
like the way that it's structured in the clans. The matron seems
Hmm.
to be like the queen of the
Yeah.
clan. Like that's
Hmm.
yeah. And yeah, Manon is the heir. So her grandmother is the matron to her Blackbeak clan.
Hmm.
Part of the training to ride the wyverns, one witch from I guess just one witch in general will be
Hmm.
chosen to be the wing leader of
Hmm.
the wyvern riding witches. And then in order to determine who's going to be the wing leader, they will have a competition to see who that will be. I guess
Yeah.
probably the strongest of them all, right?
Hmm. I think that's such a like cool idea. I was really looking forward to that chapter where
Yeah.
we actually get to. It's like I don't. It's not quite the Hunger Games, but like something similar. The
Yeah.
Olympics of witches.
The Olympics of Witches, yeah. The Colosseum thing.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, yeah. So when it comes time for the witches to pick their wyvern mounts, it's interesting because like obviously you want a vicious, big, powerful mount, right?
Hmm.
Manon ends up choosing a wyvern that's being used as like the bait beast. So he's like the lowest of the low, right?
Hmm. He's not even supposed to be considered.
No, he's
He's
not
just like
supposed to
a
be
training
considered.
puppy.
Yeah. So but she yeah. But she saw something in this wyvern. And
Hmm.
so she chose him, and everybody was like, what are you thinking? And
Yeah.
he's smaller too.
Yeah.
Poor.
So
Aw.
she has this kind of beef with the heir of the Yellow Leg clan. And that witch pushed Manon into the pit with the wyverns.
Mhm.
And while she was in the pit, the beast that Manon was going to choose, like this big massive, I think it's called like Titus.
Mhm.
She was going to choose him. So she's pushed into the pit with him. He's like the biggest of them, of the wyverns. And the other little bait wyvern is also in the pit. So it's the two of them and her. And she actually sees the little guy almost like not protecting her, but kind of like he fights against this massive big beast. So she teams up with this small wyvern to defeat the massive wyvern to like save her life. And then at that moment, she's like, I'm going to pick him because he might not be the biggest and the strongest, but he has heart and he has like perseverance.
Yeah. Even in the face of what seems like impossible odds, he's fighting against Titus.
Yeah.
So I think although Manon is clearly extremely vicious and very little, appears to have very little compassion, if any.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's something kind of inside of her that is a little bit softer for her to choose this wyvern.
Yeah. No, she definitely cares more about their personality than just their brute force.
Yeah.
And she says, like, he's a warrior. Like, she wanted someone with that heart.
Yeah. I know.
And
it's so touching.
So she names him Abraxas.
Yeah. Abraxas.
So she names him Abraxas, and she ends up actually giving him, because he was a bait wyvern, he like didn't have his teeth. He was like quite beat up. And she ends up giving him iron teeth to match hers. And she puts like iron spikes on his tail because like all of that was taken out of him so that he couldn't hurt the other ones.
Yeah.
And so she like completely
fixes him up. Yeah.
Fixes him up. And then she does something else that's really, really special. And she goes on this mission and gets some spider silk. And that's like a really cool scene where she
gets
goes
a lot of spider silk too. But she doesn't bargain with the spiders like you're supposed to. She steals it.
Yeah. She's like so crafty.
She is. And she ends up equipping him with spider silk to fix his wings because his wings were effed.
Yeah.
But she fixes them. And spider silk is also described to be very beautiful. So he's got like, I'd like to see some fan art of him, like really highly detailed fan art with, you know, the iron teeth. When I was picturing the iron teeth, they're probably like just iron teeth. I was for some reason picturing like iron teeth that were obviously very big and sharp, but also had some ornate detailing on it. I don't know why.
Oh,
but wouldn't that be cool? Yeah.
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 I like
Not
that.
practical at all, but it would be cool. Yeah. So that's kind of Manon's story in part 1. She ends up with Abraxas, and all the witches are very derisive of that, but
yeah. Oh, her grandma is absolutely upset about this situation.
yes.
Like disappointed, like you betrayed the family.
Her grandmother is hardcore. Her grandmother is kind of a hateful being.
I have feelings about that.
Me too. Me too. Like
she is the epitome of a witch.
Yeah.
She's a witch with a capital B, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Whenever I read about her grandmother, I just feel my hackles going up. Like, yeah. And it's like, but it is what it is. And that's the matron of the Blackbeak clan. So, yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. All right. I think that concludes part 1 of Heir of Fire.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us today. In the next episode, we will be continuing on with Heir of Fire part 2.
Yeah, we hope to see you there. Bye-bye for now.